Oh, there it goes, spewing it out of the carburetor, just like before. I've been installing the fuel supply line right here. This is the overflow. There's no protection to stop fuel from shooting out of the carburetor if you hook fuel pressure to this. She runs on her own. And she goes into gear on her own. She's ready. She's ready to drive. Oh, wow. Oh boy. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to Auto Auction Rebuilds. You see it. I can't stop working on it. I've been wrenching on this car every day since I bought it. And I don't know when you're going to see this video, but chances are, before you see this video, you're going to see a video of us getting this car all cleaned up and ready to go down to Weird Beard. But the fact of the matter is, you're probably seeing the video out of order. I will probably finish getting this one running and driving first before I ever touch that car. What I can say is I did drive that car over 100 miles the other day. I made Jessica go with me in it, and she was not happy. She was like, this car is going to break down. It didn't break down. The car drove over 100 miles, mostly highway, very reliably, and close to 30 miles a gallon. Now, while 30 miles a gallon isn't great by today's standards, for 2010, that was actually pretty good. 30 miles a gallon in this car was very decent. It rode comfortably. She's actually very impressed with it. But I don't have the heart to stop working on this car. So, in this video, my intent is to swap out the SU carburetor, and I thought I ordered the wrong one, but as it turns out, I didn't. I ordered the exact same carburetor. Look at that. And this one actually doesn't look too bad. It's got new gaskets down. It looks like somebody had definitely rebuilt it, whereas this one I don't think has ever been rebuilt. Now, this is a fairly straightforward carburetor to replace. You've got your fuel line here. You've got a cooling line here. This is an auto. A lot of people have said in the comments that this has a manual choke. No, it doesn't. There's no choke, no manual choke on this. This is an automatic choke controlled by coolant temperature. Okay, so there's a cooling line here and a coolant line here. These get taken off of the choke right here, and then you have a vacuum line up there, a fuel line right here, an emissions or PCV hose most likely right here, and the throttle cable. That's it. This is very simple. 4 bolts, and you're done. So I am very excited to get this carburetor swapped out and find out if the damn thing will run. And if we have time, we'll take this carburetor apart, and let's see if we can try to figure out what was wrong with it. So you're probably thinking to yourself, it's a tiny carburetor. How hard could it be? Yeah, well, unless you've got little bitty teeny tiny fingers to get down into these little bitty teeny tiny places, it's actually quite the pain. It should come off. I'm trying not to break that base gasket. And of course, now one of the things that I'm really liking about this new carburetor versus the old one is down here, you can see there's no plug. That's sealed. However, on my original SU carburetor, there's a big old plug. Ooh, I'm getting gasoline everywhere. That's all right. A big old plug on the bottom right here that I had to JB weld. And what happens is that plug leaks. There's a seal. When the seal, not if, when the seal eventually goes bad, it dumps gasoline all over the hot exhaust, catches your car on fire, and burns it to the ground. I'm going to go ahead and toss on this carburetor real quick, and we can fire it up and find out if she will run on her own. And it's moment of truth time. That was let me tell you something. That little carburetor cut me up in more places than I care to admit. This little tiny thing is a pretty big PITA. Now I've got the pressure set at like half a PSI. This carburetor was listed for $29.99 with like a $39.99 buy it now, something like that, off of a running well MGB. I think we figured it out after checking with Google. The top is supposed to be fuel inlet. The bottom is the overflow, and I believe the overflow runs to this pipe right here and into the charcoal canister. At least I hope so. Now this line is way too long for the overflow. This is just a very first attempt to see what happens when we turn the key on and the fuel pump engages. Hopefully it doesn't spew out of the carburetor like it did before. It should be filling the float bowl right now. I don't see it dumping fuel everywhere yet, so let's try to start it. And she's not happy. Oh, there it goes, spewing it out of the carburetor, just like before. Obviously, with a completely different carburetor, we're having the exact same problem. And I've got this thing turned on half a PSI, so it shouldn't be doing this. Well, guys, I had to take a break from the fuel system. I find it difficult, but not impossible to believe that two carburetors are doing the exact same thing. Now, two carburetors could both have bad needles, corroded needles. There could be debris caught in where the float opens and closes. I just find it unlikely. Anything's possible, but I find it unlikely. So I feel like the issue is probably my aftermarket fuel pump and my aftermarket regulator. The fuel pump seems to be working fine. So my guess is that I've got a regulator that doesn't actually regulate anything. So I took a step back and I'm like, okay, you know what I probably need to do? I should have done it to begin with instead of trying to go around it. I should have just shelled out the money. It's about $200 for a factory original SU, but solid state instead of point system fuel pump. That's probably what should have been done to begin with. So I took a step back and I started playing with electrical. I love electrical. I really do. Electrical is a lot of fun to me. I enjoy tracing things down, and it's something that I can usually fix relatively easy, unlike fuel system issues that are plaguing me. So what we had and what we have, if you actually take a look right here, I'll go ahead and disconnect this, and I'll show you. Got the trusty voltmeter out what the problem was. As you can see, we have two headlights. We have one parking light. I checked the bulbs over here. Bulbs are good. No power. I checked ground. Grounds are good. No power. Okay. So no light, no light. But down here, we have a light, and here we have a light. Thankfully, both headlights work. Coming around here, you'll notice we have a light here. We have a light here. We have a light here, but we do not have a light here, nor a light here. It's kind of bizarre, right? Opposite corners, you'd think, you know, light bulbs. It's pretty simple. It's old. Light bulbs are bad. No. Not so fast. The circuit shares the power from this side over here. Actually, I believe it all runs from this harness over here where it crosses over, and from here it ends. It goes into this headlight assembly, wires all of this, and it disappears. So somewhere we have an issue with getting power from here back over to this side again. Now watch what happens when all I do is connect some alligator clips to the same power wire that runs the parking lights on this side. Oh, you're funny, aren't you? Yeah, real funny. Okay. A little bit of corrosion made me look like a fool. but I'm okay with that. It happens, man. Now you can clearly see we have lights. Lights. Light. We already had these. We already had this. But we have a light here. And we have a light here as well. So we have all of our parking lights. We have high beams, parking. We don't have turn signals, unfortunately. I'm still waiting on the hazard switch to come in. Maybe it will come in before I upload this video, because obviously I cannot upload this video yet. We'll try the... Yeah, see, no turns. But the brights work. The hazards do nothing. And you can rock them and still nothing. We do have dash lights. Everything seems to be working relatively well. I'll go ahead and turn that key off. Unfortunately for me, not for you guys, but for me, this means I'm going to have to go inside and order parts. That sucks because that costs money, and these cars are starting to get kind of expensive. But at the end of the day, this is what it's all about, right? We want to get this on the road. I want to get this thing running. I want to take it for its first drive. I ordered the tires today, so it's got a brand new set of tires that should be here for me, 2 days. So once tires are here, I'm going to try to see if I can get an expedited shipping on the fuel pump. And I'm going to cross my fingers that with the proper fuel pump installed, we will be able to bring this car back to life. With the proper fuel pump, with its own internal regulator, it will all be right, and we'll be able to hook it up here. I did try, just for, giggles, I tried moving this down here and vice versa. I've switched the inlet both directions, and it doesn't do any good. When you put it down here, it won't run at all. When you put it up here, it literally just spews fuel out of the carburetor. Now, like I said, I can't say for sure that we don't have an issue with the carburetor. There could be a float issue. There could be a needle issue. I just don't think so, guys. 2 carburetors with the exact same issue, and this one was listed as coming off of a running and driving MGB. So, we'll come back. That's about all I can say. We'll come back. We're going to come back stronger. I could use a break from this anyway. Sometimes when you get really stressed out, the best thing to do is just walk away. Be happy with what we've accomplished. We got all the lights working. I'll have my signals and stuff working soon. So let's just take a break from this, and I will go on and continue recording in a separate video this for you guys. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It's going to be coming to this. Don't worry, we're not leaving. I'll be back as soon as I get some parts in, like this. Well, guys, it's been another long day. I got to tell you, all the people that said, hey, you're going to love the MG. It's an easy car to work on. I have to agree with you in a lot of ways, but I got to disagree with you in a few for sure, man. The electronics on it are questionable. I'll just start off with that. We got a new fuse cover, a fuse block coming for. I'm going to go ahead and replace that. And we found that, this is funny, the starter relay will not function to start the car. But if you turn the parking lights on and then try to crank the car, it'll crank. Don't ask me how, but if you turn the parking lights on and try to start it, the starter will engage. But if you turn the lights off, the starter doesn't try to do anything, and you have to jump it over there. Whatever, though. As you can see, we've got the carburetor off of the car. And I found that I've made a handful of mistakes thus far, and I'm probably not done making them yet. But that's okay. Mistakes are how we learn. So here's the new eBay Carb for $69, right? Looks similar, but it's not. Right here, and I found out, I kind of been making a mistake on this carb. There may possibly not have been anything wrong with that carb. This is the fuel inlet. This is the vent. If this overpressurizes or overfills, it vents this out of the carburetor and away from the engine. Okay? On this carburetor, it's a little bit different. And as you can see, you got your floats right here. And this is what I suspected was wrong with mine. and I still think it was, right here, this little brass piece. This is a switch. When the floats are empty, it's off, but when the floats fill up and lift to the top, it gently presses on that switch and shuts fuel supply off. And I thought that's what's wrong with mine. Well, I decided to do, I wouldn't call this a carburetor rebuild, but it's a half-ass carburetor rebuild. All right, so I cleaned out the float bowl cover. Here is the needle. This is what controls the amount of fuel being let into the carburetor. This is also what has the diaphragm attached to it right here that allows this piston to create a Venturi effect as it moves up and down and allows for more air. As more air comes through, it allows for more fuel as well. And in here, excuse me, these are my floats. I've already checked them. The floats look perfectly fine. There's no sign of gasoline in them. They sit right here, just like this. All right, yeah, you didn't think I could work on carburetors, did you? So many of you think that I'm totally incompetent. I'll be the first to admit, I don't know everything there is to know about cars. I know just enough to get me in trouble. All right, so the floats sit here just like they do in the other one, once you push them in. You got your spring for your piston and your diaphragm. You got your cover for the diaphragm. And somewhere over here, yeah, of course I lost it. Of course. I literally just had it sitting here, and it's like one of the most important pieces to the whole dang carburetor. Come on now. I tried my best to clean the carburetor up some, trying to make it look a little bit better, so maybe it flows a little bit better. I dipped the screws and everything into B12 Chem Tool, and I really did lose it. I did. I'm going to have to come back when I find it. So this little piece right here is what I suspected was giving me all of the issues. This is a shutoff valve. All right, so fuel comes in from behind it. This screws into the carburetor. I'll show you where. These are really interesting carburetors, guys. I'm finding them very intriguing. I'm not going to say that I'm totally against switching over to a Weber. But like I said before, guys, before I go spending a bunch of money on to change over to the Weber, it's got to be the Weber carburetor, a new intake, header exhaust. There's a lot to it. I'm not trying to put all of that into this car before we even find out if it drives down the road. So this is what I found I was doing wrong on this carburetor. And this is almost comical, guys. So obviously, this is where fuel comes in, right? And when it's open, it allows fuel to fill the bowl. All right, when you have your floats on here, just like the other one, and I'm not going to lock this down yet, but once the floats lift all the way up, it pushes this button and shuts fuel supply off. Makes sense, so it doesn't overflow. Now, here's where your needle goes, and here's your vent. So if it does start building up too much pressure, it will go through here and out the vent. Here's the problem, guys. This is the side of the carburetor that faces the front of the car. I have been I'm dying here. I've been installing the fuel supply line right here. This is the overflow. There's no protection to stop fuel from shooting out of the carburetor if you hook fuel pressure to this. Never should there be fuel pressure to this. The fuel line was supposed to go on the front of the carburetor, facing the front of the car. This is where the fuel supply was supposed to be coming in at, where once it fills the bowls, the float comes up, or backwards, but the float comes up, shuts it off, problem solved. So that was totally user error on my part. When I bought the car, it didn't have a fuel line hooked up to it at all, so I had no way of knowing where it was supposed to go. I did look on Google, honestly not for a long period of time, but I didn't find anything to help me. So now I know I had the fuel hooked up in the wrong place. Either way, we've taken all of this stuff out. We have cleaned it all very thoroughly, and even the cap has been. I really worked hard to clean this up. The diaphragm is good, so we are going to reassemble it and see if it runs. So we're back a couple days later. Let me tell you something, guys. Parts for this thing are not the easiest to go out and get, but O'Reilly's has been a great source for me to grab some of these parts from. I got me a little rebuild kit, and there's only really a couple things I wanted out of it. One of them, here's the old diaphragm. It is kind of stiff, and we have the new gaskets that I need. This is the float bowl gasket, and this is the carburetor base gasket 10-take manifold, and this is the new very, very flexible diaphragm that I need for this piston right here. So I wasn't going to do any of this on camera, but I did have a couple of you specifically ask if I would. This is very quick. This is very simple. This is not a full rebuild. Okay, this is just kind of a backyard quick fix to bring this thing back to life. Like I said before I go ham on it and we go buying a whole bunch of aftermarket parts, I want to make sure this thing runs and drives decent on its own. So here we have the new, what do you call this? The seat and needle. We have this little base gasket right here that sits here. This is where the fuel inlet comes in, and this is responsible for stopping fuel or allowing fuel to come in. When it's full, the bowl closes, locks it down, and off you go. That's a brand new one that came with this kit, and it is, I think, a 1/2 inch diameter. You don't have to torque these things down ridiculously or anything. This is really easy to do, guys. This is actually a fairly simple carburetor. I've heard a lot of people complaining about it on forums and such, but in my opinion, it's not bad. That should do it. Then your happy little float. I believe the float goes this direction, and it latches on right here. Literally just clicks into place. Look at this. Click, click. Bingo. And as you can see right there, that's exactly what it's supposed to do. Okay, when this hits this, shuts fuel supply off. Simple as that. Next, we have our float bowl gasket, which, if I remember right, goes on a little bit something like this. You got to clear the floats first. There it goes. That should do it. And I exchanged the bottom section, the float bowl cover, from this carburetor. This is the one that originally went to this. I don't like it because it's got that plug that tends to leak. You can tell this is a slightly newer, revised model, doesn't have a plug, so it's not going to leak. So I'm going with the revised model. Just set that up there, and then it's just a matter of figuring out which screws go where, and it should be fairly simple because the long screws are going to go in the longer holes. Actually, you know what? These all appear to be smaller screws. They are. Look at the difference in the bowls. You see that? This one has long screws, and this one takes short screws, so I'm going to have to figure out... I tore the other carburetor apart just to learn how it works. Very simple design, guys. The only thing I did not tear apart was the water-controlled automatic choke. But everything else, this is the carburetor almost fully disassembled, and I actually have the carburetor soaking, the body of it soaking in the chem tool down there. So once I find these screws, we can, in fact, I'll bet they're over here. There, no, that's not them either. Okay, I'll be back when I figure out what I did with all the short screws. Well, I found all of the screws. They were on the hood of the car. Apparently, I took the float bowl off at the vehicle instead of over here on this bench. And I had them all scattered around over there. So we've got the screws. Now it's a matter of tightening these down. You don't have to go excessive. You don't have to go all ham on these, but tighten them down relatively good. And at that point, guys, everything is back together. I also have the sending unit. I got to install that today too. Right here is the new sending unit for the fuel tank. We're going to finish putting this together back here, and then I'm going to show you how to install the piston, needle, and the diaphragm. So let's go ahead and knock this out and flip her over. All right, with her flipped over, there is a groove on here that you have to find. And it's like a little tab. You can barely see it. Well, I don't know if you can see it at all, but right there, there's a tab. That's a marker. You want to be able to line this up exactly with where this little lip is right here. It fits nice and happily. Come on now. Always when you're trying to explain something, right? It fits nicely into that groove there. Nice and perfect. This seal right here is the diaphragm. Next, if I remember correctly, is your piston with your, I think this is like a, it's like a fuel metering rod, sort of. I don't know specifically. This right here could also be a metering rod. Let's try that again. Okay, So, actually, no. I think I did this wrong. Yeah, I did this wrong. Piston goes in first. See, I'm going to share this with you. I could have, don't think for a minute that I could not have edited this out and started over and acted like I knew exactly what I was doing. I could have, but I'm not going to do that because that's not reality. I have never worked on one of these before, so I'm going to share my experience with you. Okay, there are two locating tabs on this. One is right here, and the other is right here. So when this one gets locked in here, this one needs to be slightly over here. So we want to make sure we got that lined up where it goes right there. And we want to make double sure that this one is still lined up with where it goes right here. So now, there we go. Now she should be nice and happy. Everything is in its proper spot, at which point we have this little locking plate right here that goes over it. I don't think it matters which way this goes, really. It just kind of drops on top here and seals everything off. You've got 4 little screws, which will be these right here, to lock this down, at which point we'll then install our spring. And once you install your spring, then you install your cap, and then you fill up the dash pot here with oil. Once you do that, you will have a fully functioning, look how smooth that is. It doesn't even have oil. Look how smooth that works. And that's all there is to it. All right, I'm going to button it up. We can install it on the car, and let's see if we can finally get this thing to run. And now we're finally to the point where we should be able to turn the key on and fill up the float bowls, and hopefully everything goes well. We've got new hose run from over here to the coolant-controlled thermostat choke for the carburetor. Then another one run down here where it goes into a white pipe. We've got the fuel line run over here with the fuel regulator set at 2.5 psi. It runs into a fuel filter right here. And then it runs into a reducer down to a 1/4 inch where it then runs to the proper side of the carburetor. If you guys remember, I had this hooked up over here. I thought this was the fuel line. I was wrong. This is the vent. The vent is not where you want to dump fuel. The vent is for it to push excess fuel or vapor out to the charcoal canister. So I have not done anything without you other than hook the battery back up. It's at a point now where we turn the key on and hope that it doesn't shoot fuel out of the carburetor again. Okay, normally by now we'd have gasoline spewing all down the engine, so I'm going to flip this back a little bit, get it out of the way, get in here. Oh yeah, you have to turn the lights on to start it. She runs on her own. And she goes into gear on her own. She's ready. She's ready to drive. Look. She runs on her own. I did it. I sound surprised. I probably shouldn't sound surprised, but I'm honestly, yeah, I'm a little surprised the damn thing's running right now. Listen to her. Now I'm sure I've got to adjust the automatic choke. I'm 100% sure I've got it adjusted improperly. The main thing right now is that there are no fuel leaks. Nothing is gushing out of the carburetor. It's all in one piece, and it's running on its own, and it's running on gasoline from the fuel tank. Wow. You know what this means, guys. This means I got to sit here and let it warm up for a little bit. She's not smoking. We got lights. Oh, I didn't finish. I didn't get a light bulb for that. I forgot. And another reverse light. It is getting kind of carbon monoxide-y in here. Let's open this up and... Oh, man. Let's let her warm up. I'll get her off the stands, and we'll see if she's a mover and a groover, I guess. Next, we move on to the... remember, it's the bottom one. I don't think it'll matter at this point. It's not like we're going to short anything out, but from what I understand, this is so simple. You just find like the opposing tabs or something, and oh, got stuck on the wrong end there. Huh? I'm confused. I could have swore it said, maybe you got to bend the tabs out a little bit. Well, anyway, it looked like you just kind of stick this here and twist. Huh, I'm going to have to figure this one out, guys, but let's get that cinder out of there and replace it so we know how much gas we have. Sorry for the flickering light. I was correct. You bend the tabs out just a hair and basically just find you two of them and click. She pops right off. At this point, we should be able to get in here probably with a screwdriver and, oh wow, hopefully no gas comes pouring out. There shouldn't be much gas in here. Oh wow. Oh boy. Well, yeah, that explains why it doesn't work. Dang, that's pretty nasty, guys. That's pretty nasty. Let me see if we can shine a light in there and see how she looks. She looks bad. She looks real bad. Okay. Well, I don't think I can get you guys in there. I don't think you can... Woo! I don't think you can see anything, guys. She is very, very rough. I was afraid of that. This means we're probably going to have to replace the tank. Thankfully, I've got 2 fuel filters installed on this right now, so that should be enough to kind of keep things going for a little while. But inevitably, we are going to have to replace the tank. Let me get this new sending unit in. At least then we'll know how much fuel we have in the tank, right? Let's get her done. Well, guys, I'm not going to lie. That I'm not totally surprised. And I know I'm going to get a lot of flack and a lot of hate from people saying I'm doing it all wrong. You should never run the car on a gas tank that's as filthy as that. I know this, man. I know this. That's why I put those fuel filters on it and a really, really cheap fuel pump. Guys, we have not gone back with the original equipment fuel pump yet. Okay? And we're not going to either. No, sir. Nope, we ain't going back with the original equipment fuel pump. Those things are $200 a piece. So the tank is going to cost us $180. All right, it's not bad. And I think for that $180, we even get a touring version of the tank, which takes us from, I think this is a 12-gallon tank or something ridiculously small like that. But it takes us from a teeny tiny little gas tank to a 16-gallon tank, which obviously gives you a little more range. Let's turn the key on and see if the fuel gauge works. Well, the fuel gauge says it's empty. And truthfully, it kind of sounds empty. Oh yeah. For whatever reason, you got to turn the lights on. There you go. And you can turn the lights off and she's fine. I just adjusted the idle. I still need to adjust the choke. We got the idle to about 700 or 800 RPM. It was idling around 1500 RPM earlier. So definitely out of gas. You can see the gas gauge there is pretty much on empty. So why don't we add some fuel to the tank and make sure that gauge works. Ladies and gentlemen, it is the next day and we are back with the MGB. And I gotta tell you, it's time to take her for a drive. It is finally time to take this car out on the road. I am seriously excited. I think we did it. I do. I know that the tires are extremely old. The inner tubes for the tires are extremely old. I've got a brand new set of tires already for it on the porch. I'm waiting for the inner tubes and the bands to show up so I can take it and get the new tires and tubes installed. But I put the mirror back on. I did not clean it up too much, but I cleaned off the windshield. As you can see, the paint is still nasty. We'll come back in another video and we'll break out the polisher, probably take this off, and give it a really good buff and polish. And I mean, I know it's got dings and dents all over it, whatever. I just want to try to make it look good and original. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be asking, are we going to send it to Weird Beard, or are we going to send it to Mako? Are we going to get all the dings straightened out, a respray of the same color, or whatever? Guys, probably not. Honestly, probably not. I think this thing looks pretty awesome in the condition it's in. Now, I'm going to show you something. We're going to do a cold start, legitimate cold start. All right, but for whatever reason, you have to turn the light switch on. Let me show you one more time. I'll show you again. Make sure it's in neutral here. Oh, that's the windshield wipers. Doesn't do anything. But if you flip the headlight switch on, look how she fired it. And look at the temperature gauge. Ice cold. All right, ice cold. That's a cold start right there, guys. That is literally a cold start. So apparently I did a pretty damn good job rebuilding that carburetor. Listen to her. Runs like a champ. Runs like a champ. Pop the hood, take a look at the engine compartment. I can finally move this car out of here and get my garage cleaned up, right? I did some more work off camera, and I got all my lights working the right way. Before, the lights were working because I had a jumper wire. I took the jumper wire completely out. I took all of the harness connectors apart and cleaned them thoroughly. Now all the lights work. Still waiting on the turn signals, of course. But look at her. We've got the air intake box hooked back up. It's running off of the automatic choke right now. Go ahead and drop this down. It's crazy, guys. Crazy. Just sit right in, turn those lights off, and let's back it out of the shop. That should be reversed. we burnt the tires, guys. She's idling up a little high right now, around 2,000 RPMs. Not sure what the deal is with that, but it's also important to remember this is a carbureted engine, and she is ice cold, no power steering. So I'm just going to move her over here out of the way right now, and I'm going to let her warm up some, guys. So it's e-brake. See if I can tap that gas and there we go. There we go. All right, I'm gonna let it sit here and warm up for a little bit, guys, and then we'll take her on a drive. if you're wondering how it drives, I'm currently doing 50 miles an hour. I'm in 4th gear and I'm at about 2750 RPMs. So she looks like she likes to wind up a little bit. My feet are exceptionally hot. There's a lot of hot air blowing through the floor. The coolant temperature is good. Oil pressure is at about 75 PSI right now at 3000 RPMs. The old tires actually feel pretty decent. The handling is very responsive, very sharp. It feels like you're driving a go-kart. Kind of reminds me of a Miata, but I think maybe a little bit better. There's just something about a classic car that just feels so right, guys. Yeah, I definitely got to figure out that heat blowing on my feet, because that is too much. That is absolutely destroying the drive for me. We've driven 12.5 miles, and she's doing great. My biggest complaint right now is the carburetor likes to stay idle pretty high. If I were to take my foot off the clutch right now, my foot's off the clutch and it's still idle at 3,000, and it's gradually dropping to 25, and it's kind of hanging at 25. Now, if I give it a rev, a punch of the gas, then she drops down like she's supposed to. So definitely something is out of adjustment there. 4th gear, 45 miles an hour. She's doing great. And just like that, we're back. It made it. It did well, considering it's been sitting for 16 years and we've really done minimal amounts of work to get it back on the road again. So no complaints here at all. The brakes are actually, they're very good. The brakes are impressively good considering how old everything is here. We did not replace the brake master cylinder either. We simply refilled it and checked the hoses, which look to be in very good condition. And we bled everything in full send down the road. Radiator cap is leaking. Not a huge deal. It's not overheating. Temperature never got above normal. Now, I did say that we weren't going to replace the factory fuel pump, and I lied. Last night, I bit the bullet, man. I spent over $800 last night on parts. We got a new original equipment point-style SU fuel pump, a new 16-gallon fuel tank. We've got new fuel filters. We've got basically everything to put it back to stock. All right, so we're going to redo the whole fuel system, and we're going back to stock. I got new heater hoses, new upper and lower radiator hoses. I got a new V-belt for the alternator, water pump, and crankshaft. I've got oil from Classic, I think it's called Classic Motors oil. It's got a DDP or something in it that's really good to help prevent wearing on the camshaft in these. So I've got the proper oil for it, the proper weight, 20 weight 50. Oil filter. Yeah, what else? Miscellaneous light bulbs and little pieces here and there. The windshield wipers, I've got replacements for those as well. As I said, tires, inner tubes, rubber bands. These are basically bicycle tires, so they have to be treated as such. So these tires have inner tubes. These are the tires that are going on it. Guys, we're going full steam ahead. Like, I'm going to do this just like we did with the Fury, just like we did with the Coronet. We're going to put it back together. We're going to enjoy it. Hopefully that carburetor gets sorted out. Chances are it's not going to sort itself out. So there may be more work to do on that. We've got a new fuse panel coming with the cover. This one's missing the cover. I need to order that relay. I keep forgetting about that. But ultimately, guys, she runs and she drives very well for a car that's been sitting for 16 years. We got a lot more work to do with it. We got a lot of parts coming, so stay tuned. For those of you wondering how far we're going to go with this car, I can't honestly say. I have no idea. It's just kind of however inspired I feel about it, which really depends on your reaction to the videos. If you guys enjoy them, you watch them, you click the like button, and you comment and share them with your friends, the more likely we are to go further with it. There's a lot further we could go with this car, guys. Right now, I'm just trying to do the basics. We also got plugs, wires, cap, rotor, all that good stuff, guys. So there's plenty more coming, and hopefully in the next video of this car, I think it's time we give it a bath. I think it's time we take it out there and really give it a good wash, maybe put a little bit of polish and cutting compound on it. Just basically try to clean the car up and make it look as good as possible. If that's something you guys want to see, click the like button, comment down below that you want to see us clean it up. If you're not interested in it, I'll skip the video altogether and I'll just do it on my own. So guys, I am going to get out of here because I've been staying up till 5 o'clock in the morning every day, and I'm beat. I'm literally just beat. This car, this easy car that's so cheap and simple to work on. Hey, you guys were right. She's been a challenge, but I love a challenge. And the best part of it is at the end of the day, I got this car running and driving within a week. Within a week of purchasing it from IA Auctions for $2,500, she just went out on the road and did 50 miles an hour and drove like 15 miles today, guys. That is impressive, and that is an accomplishment. That makes me feel good. And I hope you guys enjoyed following along. Guys, I'm going to get out of here. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not currently subscribed. Follow me on Facebook and Instagram, Auto Auction Rebuilds. Comment your thoughts down below. Until next time, stay safe out there, buddy. I look forward to seeing you all very soon in the next one.